The Westerner, they were human beings.
His father really was very proud of the Westerner. He thought that it was a very honest look at what it was like to be on a ranch around the turn of the century, and that's what Sam was trying to do.
I began to realize that I was working with a director that was important in the development of Westerns is John Ford.
Of the 14 pictures, Sam did at least 3 classics.
I've said too many times, when I'm a good whore, I go run kicks. Maybe I'm not such a good whore because I don't get paid.
With Ford, Kurosawa, Ford, Fellini, and Bergman, they've been great influences in my life. But particularly, I've never gotten over Rashomon. You know, there was only 3 dissolves in the entire picture. Everything is done in cuts, and I must have seen it. That and last year, Money and Blood are 2, I think, great breakthroughs in filmmaking.
We were mountain people, we were country people. Father's family, they had a sawmill up on Peckinpah Mountain, which is now on the maps, and it is Peckinpah Mountain, and it's above Fresno. Grandfather was a judge. He was an attorney and a judge in Fresno and became a congressman. And mother lived back in Washington, D.C., but her love was always the mountains. They ran cattle, and I remember the last roundup, I was about 5, and they would cut the ears of the calves to mark them. And I remember crying because I could see the blood spurting, and my grandfather said, "Are you crying?" And I said, "No, no." And he said, "Get out of here if you are." You were expected to behave a certain way, and there was a lot of honor and things you shouldn't do. Sam loved the mountains up there, and that's where he hunted with old Tom, the hound dog, with my brother, older brother Denver. He really loved his older brother. They'd wake up in the middle of the night and go hunt coons, which I thought was terribly cruel.
There were 2 girls who had been adopted by the Peckinpahs to take care of their children, really, and both were Mono Indians. And Sam used to use that early in his career, saying that he was part Indian, which was just totally a lie. It had nothing to do with reality. Reality was that Sam was from the Frisian Islands. His ancestors from the Frisian Islands. He was of Germanic descent. His mother and father had a lot of problems, I think. I don't think that his mother and father was the world's greatest love story. I think that it was a marriage of convenience, somewhat engineered by her father, and she and Sam had a very stormy relationship, I think, because Sam was her favorite, and I think that Sam bridled under a lot of what his mother expected of him.
Father wanted more discipline that Sam was willing to allow happened, and I think my father sent him off to military school because he thought he would get more of a strict training and the military way, which was a lot of hooey. And Sam was going to do what he was going to do. I think he was the one with more detention than anyone who had ever attended the academy. I don't know that Marines was really good for Sam. There's discipline, but there's also, it takes away the ability to reason for yourself, to make your own decisions. So Sam went from the house, from home, to San Rafael, to the Marine Corps. And you don't mature with that type of training. You mature when you experience something.
I got the Marine Corps and I I just got into a directing class. And, so I changed my major from history to drama.
I think it happened because he met Marie Selland, and she was in the drama department at Fresno State, and he became interested there.
I never was a film student per se. I was a moviegoer. I was a drama student, and I learned and worked at that. And I was a director primarily of stage.
So I stock in New Mexico, to KLAC as a stagehand, making short experimental films, to being a dialogue director with Don Siegel, to writing my own scripts for Gunsmoke, and then got a chance to direct with Broken Arrow.
I typed the original script for The Rifleman on my little portable typewriter. And the boy's name was Marion in it. Vivian. It wasn't Marion, it was Vivian. And of course that was changed to Mark. And it was going to be for Gunsmoke, and if they didn't want it or something wasn't right about it, and then it became a series. A very good series, as a matter of fact.
He was the director on it. And as a matter of fact, after it was over, he was sitting, I remember, the stairs on the set, and he was sitting there, and he called me over and he says, "I like your work and what you do, you know." And he says, he hadn't even directed a feature or anything. And I said, I want to use you in every film I do. I hope to get some feature movies, you know. And did it, and he did. I began to realize that I was working with a director that was important in the development of westerns, is John Ford.
I think he took himself too seriously when he became well known. Success is a difficult thing to handle. And with the Ride the High Country was really his great success, first great success, and then of course came the Wild Bunch.
From what I hear from talking to the different family members and talking to Denny when he was alive, and there was you can't really blame the family, because his parents and grandparents, they came out of a time of the frontier, you know. And Bob Peckinpah told a story of where his grandfather said to him, you know, "Do you know which way north is?" And he said, "No, I don't." And he backhanded him and knocked him to the floor, you know. But in those days, you know, in the days when you have to cross plains, and in their diaries, they actually had problems with Indians and fights with other trail masters, and it's just like a Western epic, the crossing of the plains by their family. So that the ways of dealing with discipline or teaching were pretty basic. Bam, don't do that.
Sam very much was expected really to join the family law firm, and he didn't do that because he had this sort of raging need to get into drama. He had gone into the war and then come back from it and gone to Fresno State, and when he did, he took a degree in drama and then went to USC and did the same, and then he was a dramatic director down at the Huntington Theater.
My thesis was based on filming a stage play. This was based on broadcasting a stage play.
And he found his way into film because his father had a relationship with a producer named Walter Wanger and got him a chance to go off and become an assistant to Don Siegel.
My father once said, always surround yourself with people who know more. So I have.
But all along the way, Sam was constantly trying to prove to his father he'd made the right choice, that by not going into law, it was not a bad thing, that he really he had something to say, something that was important. And as a consequence, I think that it colored the kinds of pictures that attracted him and the kinds of statements he wanted to make. I mean, there is a sense of justice and a sense of looking at what is right as opposed to what is legal in his films. And I think that that's a big part of who Sam was. Sam was constantly trying to measure up to his father.
The first episode of the Westerner was called Jeff, which is a powerful little piece of film. For that time, it was extraordinary. So I tried to tell some stories in the Westerner and in the Rifleman and in Gunsmoke, but we snuck some past the censors and standards and practices, and I knew that I wanted to get into film very badly.
No one wants to see the truth. And the Westerner, they were human beings. They weren't characters out of nice little stories and,
Yeah, the Westerner, I did 2 of those. And he had directed a pilot film for that one too.
It's a wonderful series, yes.
Denver actually said to me that that they had seen the Westerner, and his father really was very proud of the Westerner. He thought that it was a very honest look at what it was like to be on a ranch around the turn of the century, and that's what Sam was trying to do. And I think it certainly was very powerful in terms of Brian Keith's relationship to Sam, because Brian Keith then became responsible for bringing Sam aboard Deadly Companions, which was Sam's first feature.
Center of life is a woman. You know, I find myself drawn to that center quite often.
I got started in the business at a time when directors were directors and ran the business. Once they got on the set, before that, Warner Brothers would tell Raoul Walsh what to do, or would tell Will Wellman what to do, but when they got on the set, they were God. Wellman was that way, Walsh was that way, Ford was that way. Huge directors, and they ran it. And let me tell you something, sports fans, the committee made the camel, and that's why we have so much crap today. Not because the people aren't around that have the talent to do it, they do, but the prices have gone, they've just soared. And what was it, we did The Mask of Zorro, different figures, but something between 85 and 91 million dollars to make one motion picture. Well, if I'm going to spend $91 million, folks, I'm going to tell you how I want it spent. But I'm not going to want it spent as a motion picture telling a director what to do. If you're going to make a picture with Peckinpah, then hire Peckinpah and get the hell out of his way. If you don't want someone who is going to run it the way he wants to, good, bad, or indifferent, then go hire somebody else. There are a whole bunch of directors around who'll be tickled to death to listen to everything you've got to say and do exactly what you say. Sam ain't one of them, and he wasn't one of them. He was a eclectic, but it was people he trusted. The Peckinpah Stock Company, there were about 10 of us. And my guess is that he used us, not because we were so talented, of course I was, but he hired us because he knew we understood what he was trying to do. We'd show up, we'd help him, we overlooked his foibles, he overlooked ours, and we shot the picture. He ran it. That's the way it should be. And we're getting away from that. Sam was trying to hold to it, and had he been a little more stable, he would have been able to. But his condition overrode his talent, and it got away from him. Too bad, because he could have made, as we pointed out, probably another 10, 12, 14 pictures, and probably 3 or 4 of those would have been classics. So he shot himself in the foot, unlike the rest of us, of course.
That's I've said too many times that I'm a good whore, I go where I'm kicked. Maybe I'm not such a good whore because I don't get paid.
Middle of going through all this stuff, Sam said, come on, you got a phone call. And he turned to me, he said, come on, we got to go have lunch. And I didn't think much of it. I really wasn't all that hungry even, but we went across the Formosa Cafe, and he says, we're going across, he said, there's somebody here I want you to meet. We walked in, and there's Peter O'Toole sitting there, and he and Sam were really good friends, something I never would have thought because they never did a film together, but they really admired each other and had talked about working together a lot, but it never worked out. And we had this really terrific lunch in which they just told stories on each other. Sam, at one point, these girls who were in there were sort of sneaking around in the background because Peter O'Toole was a very handsome man and was very much a movie star in the real old sense of the word. And he saw them and he waved them over and gave them they wanted autographs. And Sam watched it, and Sam, you could almost see the envy in Sam's face. Sam would have, they weren't asking Sam for his autograph, but Sam really would have given it to them if they wanted to. Sam very much wanted to be in the forefront of what he was doing. I mean, there's a real signature to his films. There's also a certain amount of this is me. This, I mean, you know, a Sam Peckinpah film to Sam really meant something, and he worked really hard for that. But we had this really wonderful time, and at the end of it all, we sort of went our separate ways. But when Peter O'Toole made a film later on called Stuntman, and he plays a director, he's playing Sam Peckinpah. And even in several interviews, I think he even said that. But watching that film, I can remember seeing that film and going, my God, this is, I mean, literally take after take. Everything he does in that film is patterned after the kinds of things Sam would do. Sam was absolutely ruthless. The things he would do to actors and to the people around him to get what he wanted, it was all in, it really sacrificed at the altar of making a great film. He didn't care what else happened. And his whole personal life was a mess because everything that mattered was on film. And when it's all over with, and the reason I wrote the book I wrote was that in 100 years, the thing that will matter will be the films. The films said something special. I mean, he's a man who only made 14 films in his lifetime, 14 feature films, which is not a great deal of movies, but as Robert Culp said at the service for him at the Directors Guild after he died, it wasn't that he made 14 films, it was that he actually did make 14 films, that he could have made 14 films given the way he went at it, because he made it as hard as any human being could possibly make it. But at the end of the line, when you look at those films, even the ones which I think are not wholly successful, there are things about them that are extraordinary. And I think there are probably half a dozen films that 100 years from now we'll still be looking at, and we'll still be saying this is really why it is such an incredible medium. It captures that moment which sort of transcends the illusion and becomes reality.
Of the 14 pictures, Sam did at least 3 classics. At least 3. Cross of Iron is close. Straw Dogs is close. Junior Bonner is certainly a classic, although an unsuccessful classic, if you will, but a classic nevertheless. But let's say of the 14 pictures, you're looking at close to 6 of them being classic works of art. So the man had something, sports fans. I can't tell you what it was, but he used it well, but not wisely. Because really, Sam lost the opportunity. If he did 14, he lost the opportunity to do another 12 or 14. And what would he have realized in that period of time? I don't know.
The question comes down to basic drama. That is catharsis, empathy, and aesthetic distance. People who react emotionally to a film. The basic thing about drama is conflict. We don't have any due machina to pull us up and save us. We're facing Oedipus, and he's got to put out his own eyes. And maybe that's what we're looking to, that we have to open our own eyes or put them out.
I find the interest that is still generated because of Sam's films fascinating. And he could treat people so badly and they would come back for more. I never understood that. I never did.
She was the good side of the Peckinpah family. God bless her.
Here's the golden boot I got for most of them because of the films I was in with Peckinpah. You ever hear about the golden boot? Yeah, that's the golden boot. This is like the Cowboys Oscar.